So we looked at the areas of improvement, we looked at the history of Windows, and then we put together we looked at a lot of data that we collected. And so I'm going to have a little fun with you quickly. Anyone know, as far as the taskbar goes, what would be less or equal to 14? I mean, throw out some ideas. Obviously, I'm not expecting anyone to definitely get this right, but less than or equal to 14. Any guesses what that would be? What user data that would be about the taskbar?
The number of windows running.
Oh, good answers. Again, if I had something, well, the M3 build, you know the spiel. It's going to get tiresome. Yes, you're right. It's the maximum number of windows open at one time for most sessions. That's a mouthful. What does that really mean? Personally, I hate seeing these little data nuggets and then not knowing what the full story is. So here's the full story. The full story is, here's a chart that kind of documents what we're seeing out there. And we have people who anonymously and voluntarily send us data. It's kind of the Nielsen report of Windows. And the Nielsen ratings will tell us, in short, that if you look at those first three columns, the first three bars, 90% of sessions have 0 to 14 windows at their peak count. 90%. Now, I know in this room, you probably are an outlier. You're probably like, no, I have 20 windows, or I have 50. This doesn't mean that we're ignoring you, not by any stretch of the imagination. All it means is when we look at where we're investing, where we want the experience to just shine, we have to nail this 90%. And if we want people to use more windows, we have to take them from this 90% to a larger percent. So we have to make sure we just work well in this case. Seems kind of obvious. But this is very eye-opening data for us. 0.21%. What does that mean for the taskbar? Anyone want to guess? I love this completely open-ended game. OK. It represents the number of sessions where people have the taskbar to the right of the screen. 0.21%. The left somehow garners a little more. It's a little over 6%. The top is a little over 1%. And no surprise, the bottom is a whopping 98%. I think that should add up. Yes, that should add up. And 4.997%, any thoughts? It's the number of sessions where people enable auto-hide. So again, very, very low usage there. And again, let's bring some meaning to all these numbers. And so here's the actual Vista taskbar properties page. And the checkboxes on the left denote the default setting for the taskbar. And the red numbers to the right denote how often those checkboxes are checked. And you'll see quickly that, in general, most people don't change their defaults, which is a good thing. That means we hopefully got it right for most users. Now, Windows is all about flexibility, so we still want you to change your desktop to your liking. But in general, you find people don't change. And one of the highest customized items is this group similar taskbar buttons. Almost 9% of sessions that do change this option. And again, we think it's really valuable because it cleans up the taskbar. So we wanted to look into making this experience better. But just a recap of how people use Windows. So we took all these inputs in, and what came out were a set of goals. And let me just quickly run you through these goals. The first goal I would tell you is things that you use all the time are at your fingertips. Yeah, it sounds kind of nice and fluffy, but no. This is important. We learned Windows XP. We took away quick launch. No, don't do that. Customers like one-click access. What a great concept. One-click access, things you do all the time. To other types of things you use, like files, we've coined this term destinations. You'll hear a lot about this. Destinations refer to files and folders and web pages and links that your applications consume or create. And when we did the analysis, we noticed the typical user workflow is you kind of launch your application, you use your application, let's say the common file dialog, to get to a file, and then you create or consume. You start working. But it's usually like 3 steps to get to the point where you want to go. And so what we wanted to do was make jumping to those destinations much easier. And more about that in a moment. Managing your windows with confidence. Sounds like a great idea. I'd sign up for that. And really what we're talking here is when you want to switch windows, we want you to switch with conviction. We want you to know where you're going. And also when you arrange your windows, we want you to feel better about that experience. You are in control. This also sounds really good. Again, this pertains to the notification area. But in general, you put things where you want them. You control the look and feel. And finally, in addition to the utility of our UI, we always have to make sure there's as much emotional connection as we can get. And the last bullet speaks to a very important aspect of our product development, which is the kind of, how does this thing look? What's the personality? And really important. And one thing I'll say about all these goals, there's kind of a guiding principle. And there's a talk tomorrow about the design principles of Windows 7. And one of the key guiding principles encapsulated in all these bullets is this notion of increasing confidence by reducing concepts. And so if we can just make the desktop a little more tuned to how you work, you don't have to go multiple places, and you feel better. That early and often experience is more positive. So let's talk about the demo. Now, again, I know you folks saw a demo this morning, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of, again, echo and extend some of the stuff you saw. So quickly, the first thing you'll notice, well, first of all, I should start by saying I am a PC, and this is my desktop. And what you'll notice is at the bottom of the screen, my desktop is personalized the way I like it. And those icons at the bottom are really the applications I use all the time. Now, I have to stop for a second, because I was reading some blog posts. I'm totally going off script here. I was reading some blog posts after the keynote, and generally it was great to read your feedback. And there was one comment that was interesting where someone said, oh, Microsoft copied another operating system. Look at those large icons. And I have to say, I could probably lose my job for this. But the comment was accurate. It's true. We did indeed steal from ourselves Windows 1.0, Windows 95, Windows XP, and Windows Vista. Yes, we did learn from our improvements, and we bring you this OS. And as you've seen through the history of Windows, large icons have always been there. The ability to switch has always been there. Grouping windows has always been there. So we're proud to evolve the taskbar as you see it today. So the first thing I'd like to do with my taskbar is customizing it, if my mouse is behaving. There we go. And so WinRAR, great utility I use all the time. And so very easy to drag and drop onto your taskbar, as you saw. And the other thing, of course, that's instrumental to the taskbar is launching. So here's Word. I'm going to launch Word. Pretty simple. I'm going to actually open up a file in Word. I have some file prepared. It's a very interesting read, as you can tell. And the thing you'll notice at the bottom of the taskbar is the launcher that started Word is now the switcher that can switch to Word. So just like the Vista taskbar, I can switch and launch. Really simple. And just like the Vista taskbar, if I bring my mouse to it, I get a pretty little thumbnail. It's a little bigger than Win 7. And one thing we learned was don't show people nice little UI and not let them click on it. And in Vista, you see the thumbnail, but you can't touch the thumbnail. And now we're saying touch the thumbnail. So just bring your mouse up and click on it. It's a very natural and lightweight way to switch. But the interesting thing happens is when I open up another document. And here, I'm going to open up another document called Demo 2. Now, the first thing you'll notice is when I bring my mouse here, I'm not even clicking, by the way. I'm just bringing my mouse here on hover. You see now group thumbnails. And for you enthusiasts out there, think of this as a contextual Alt-Tab, right? Just like you have Alt-Tab that has these items, all we did was take this very old UI that is Alt-Tab that's been around since, well, Windows 95 in this incarnation, and we just connected it to the taskbar. So now it's one easy place to go. And just like you expect, you can click to switch. Again, very intuitive, very natural. But one thing we find out very quickly is, usually we demo this with really nice pictures on the taskbar. And you notice I did not use nice pictures for thumbnails. I chose probably the hardest scenario, which is 2 Word documents. Now, you may not have noticed, but my 2 documents are actually different. This document has some interesting things about a fox jumping. And this document also has that. But in the back row, you may not see this. But the front row, there's an ever so small period here. Now, the question is, how do we design a model that lets people switch with confidence? So now, if I bring my mouse here and I ask you folks, and actually, let's make this more interesting, and let's launch IE just to cover all these windows. Let's make it this realistic. If I bring my mouse here, the question is, which document has the period? Now, some of you may say, well, actually, I noticed the documents are named Demo 1 and Demo 2. And you found the first way to distinguish documents, the text above it. And it's an interesting point to make, though, that the taskbar, every button on the taskbar used to compete with itself. So think about it. IE's windows would compete with Word windows. In this model, though, when you hover, only the Word windows kind of get to party. And so you have a lot more space to find the document you're looking for. So much easier to find it. But still, come on, Demo 1, Demo 2, there's got to be a better way to distinguish. And you saw some of this morning, but I just want to underscore this. If I simply just bring my mouse over the document, you notice something very interesting happening. All the other windows on the desktop turn to glass. And only the window I'm peeking at, and we call this feature arrow peek, or peek for short, only the window I'm looking at gets to come to my attention. And you'll notice it's one of the only window switchers to our knowledge that actually lets you find your window based on the actual size of the window and the actual location of the window. And this is a very big change because now I can easily see this period, this one little piece of differentiating character in these 2 documents. I can easily see this. We also discovered something interesting as we were using this feature. And the reason it's called peek is there are many scenarios when sometimes you switch to a window to get a phone number or get a name. And we find now that sometimes you can just kind of peek at a